I'm Satish from the Promised Land. Thank you so much for having me tonight. No, I really appreciate everyone making time to be here this evening, and thank you to the Product Hunt Toronto team for inviting myself and the other speakers to share our wisdom with you about the progress and experiences we've had in product. So I'd like to talk to you today about what I call tales from scale. I guess another way to put it is how to build and grow a product at scale. It's about my lessons as a product manager and now as a product leader at a high-growth startup, if you can call it that, and what I've learned from my personal and professional experiences in the last 3.5 years, as well as my team's work today. Shout out to some of the team I saw here a bit earlier. I prefer this title, it's a lot simpler. So for those that may not know, Shopify is a multi-channel commerce platform for small and mid-sized businesses. And today it powers over 300,000 retailers around the world who've processed a total of over $20 billion in total sales. It began some 10 years ago in Ottawa and now has a team of over 1,500 employees in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, Waterloo, and as of this year in San Francisco. So decent size. In that time, Shopify has changed pretty dramatically, to say the least, from a simple hosted shopping cart solution to a full-fledged product, platform, and ecosystem for commerce. And if there's one thing I've learned at Shopify, it's that this kind of 10x growth doesn't just happen. Continuous innovation doesn't come by nature, especially when from the outside it looks like things are rosy and perfect, like they once did for Nortel and later for BlackBerry. It instead comes from a proactive commitment to experimentation and a willingness to take risks even when you don't have to. So 2 years into my role at Shopify, I tweeted this as a summary of what I felt like I had learned: to hire founders, to take risks on ideas, to get quick wins and celebrate, and to be a broken record on vision. And today I want to expand on my meaning behind each of these points and how they impact our growth at Shopify. So let's start with founders. For one, as Darnell mentioned, I had a chance to be one. In 2010, this photo was taken about a year into my last company, and it sold a few years later to help jumpstart Toronto's operations for Shopify, which is now 250 plus people large. Founders are constantly put in a position to make complex decisions with limited information, to hire and manage cross-functional teams, to learn skills on an as-needed basis, to hustle for growth, and endless other small things. Now, this turns out is a great analogy for an effective product manager and leaders that you want inside of a fast-growing startup, because your time is limited, things are intentionally chaotic, and opportunities reveal themselves around every corner. When I joined Shopify, I found myself in a similar undefined position, working on small, low-hanging fruit and really looking for an opportunity to create long-term value in the white space, as a founder would. And my philosophy since in building the product team has been to keep hiring those who've been founders or had founder-like experiences, to repeat the same at the top of the funnel. But to repeat that, you need to give people breathing room. You need to give people that you bring into your startup space in order to understand the problems, to feel a part of the chaos, and to grow from within. I'm proud to have hired previous founders from Toonsy, Tab, Trend Radius, Pinpoint, and many more. Now, that can only scale you so far, which is why as a larger company, you also have to think about enablement. How do you take individuals within the company with high potential and make them effective leaders? Now, there's parts of that we are lucky in that Shopify is for entrepreneurs. So we encourage everyone on the team to create businesses of their own on the platform. But we've also recently started an APM program, so we can take high potential people from other disciplines and give them the experience of working on product in a more effective way, or direct way. Founder-type personalities also happen to be really great at this next step, which is taking risks. Now, here I am in 2014, launching one of my first products at Shopify with my team here in Toronto. Just so happens someone took this because they thought I looked really stressed. I smile when I'm stressed. And that just so happened to be this, a strategic shift in how we talked about and looked at the future of the Shopify platform. Now, it's a big shift when a company says, hey, we used to do this very specific thing, which is e-commerce and online stores, and now we kind of actually do all of this that you might need to expand and grow your business into. And it was a necessary one for Shopify, as I'll go into later, because we, much as Vidyard earlier described, have to serve our customers deeper, but also widen our addressable customer audience. And this kind of stuff doesn't start because someone thinks it's a genius idea. It starts because you have some wouldn't it be cool if ideas. And a bunch of experiments happen, and those result over time in blog posts like this. And our experiments were looking at how we could take the technology we had already used to make online stores, put them in other websites, put them in mobile apps, and then start to put them in the apps that you guys all love, like Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and many others. Now, what made these experiments and this shift possible from especially a new PM like myself at that time was a culture and environment at Shopify that's willing to support new and big ideas. And that's a part of the nature of the company. But it also takes nurture, which is why companies like Shopify do internal hack days and a lot of different things that can get people into a headspace where they're outside of the problem they've previously been given. And our hack days, which happen every quarter, have resulted in huge products in our point of sale market, in mobile, and in messaging. We also encourage people to do things that don't scale, which sounds funny coming from a technology or engineering or founded company, and that's to hard code stuff, do clickable prototypes, fund manual labor in the Philippines if you need to try an idea, partner with other companies, and especially, my favorite, build on our own public APIs, like you were just someone else in the ecosystem. And we use that to experiment with ideas and move really quickly and keep teams distributed. And of course, as you've heard likely before in the startup space, all of this comes to us as firing bullets and then cannonballs. We want to do these low-cost, low-risk things, look to see if we're addressing practical customer problems where there might be value, and then follow on with cannonballs. And the great thing as you're a larger company is those cannonballs can be big, and then you can build a cannonball factory, and then you can really go chase these big ideas if they work. You might be starting to realize that this isn't all too different from what it means to build new startups and build new companies, like some of the demos we've seen before. And that's exactly the point. It's about how we do that kind of product development at scale and how we use the gift of resources to really grow at a 10x pace. And as we've grown, our focus has been on keeping the same culture and the same attitudes that made Shopify successful in the first place. This last year was me somewhere buried in the back at the TSX when Shopify went public for the second time in Toronto. And in the year that followed this photo, our team took that strategy from that blog post in 2014 I showed you, and we furthered it by launching products and partnerships with some of the biggest mobile companies in the world, where Shopify was providing the commerce platform. Facebook, Messenger, Pinterest, Twitter, Amazon, Google, and many more. And now some of you might be wondering why. How does this tie into Shopify strategies, what I thought was a company that gave me an e-commerce store? Well, largely you're to blame, because you guys as shoppers suck. You're pretty demanding. You used to go on Google and look for something specific, and one of our merchants would come up because they have what you want. Or you used to bookmark a site because they're like, hey, that's a really great brand that I love to buy from, so I'll just keep going back. Instead, your phones in your pockets have changed that behavior forever, and most dramatically in the last 3 years. Now you expect the interesting products to come to you. Much like you expected text in the beginning on Facebook, now you look for images, videos, articles, events, maps, and even products, brought to you by Shopify. And this is because we live in less of a pull and more of a push economy, where as you spend time in all of these different experiences, you expect that the relevant things will be brought to you at the right time. And for a small business, that's super challenging because they don't own that real estate on your phone. And that's where, back to Shopify's philosophy, we have to enable them to achieve the same. In fact, today, more than 61% of all traffic to Shopify online stores come from mobile devices, and more than 50% of all orders are completed on mobile devices. So for retailers, selling online no longer just means this online store business. It means being everywhere shoppers are. And Shopify today can offer them tens of these different channels so they can be at the right place at the right time when their customers are. And this is what lets small businesses not just keep up, but these are capabilities a company like Shopify can democratize well before the big guys can get their act together. And we've since changed our strategy to make this completely externalized, to build a public platform for channel development so all marketplaces and all merchants can actually exist in the Shopify ecosystem together. And we can really enable commerce at scale anywhere people are. And I'm very proud to say that more than half of our merchants today use more than one channel on Shopify, and more than 25% use more than two. So people are growing and expanding their businesses on a daily basis as a result of how easy we've made it for them to run their stores. So this isn't just the Shopify of the future. This is what we feel confident is commerce of the future. And the best long-term growth for companies like our own come from building these unfair advantages early, not because we saw them, but because we made them. And if you don't have an advantage to scale with, you have to create one, and you have to be willing to take the risks on who you are, who you serve, and how. Those pings that we invested in over the last 3 years, you can bet yourself there's cannonball factories open, several of them. And we're going to do that time and time again. And that's why we can have multiple offices with multiple product areas, and they're all, yes, super effective. You need 1,500 people to build a business that serves this kind of scale. And along the way, you create trust. Trust in the company and the process of innovating and creating technology, and trust in your customer, or trust from your customers that you are the best place for them to be running their business in the long term. So as I've grown from a product manager to a product leader, my biggest lesson of all has been this part. You don't have all the answers, you don't have the Midas touch, you don't have enough hours in the week, but you have a lot of context, and you have a lot of trust, because you've done some stuff. And your responsibility is to loan that to your team, the people you invested in bringing on board. And you need to be strong on vision and be completely flexible on the outcomes. This often means you're not pointing at what exists, but pointing at what doesn't, and painting a bigger box than the one that your team's brought to you to begin with. This is how we at Shopify create a model for repeatable value creation. And if you do this, maybe in 10 odd years, you can go public. Our vision at Shopify is to spread internet entrepreneurship, and while we've had a really good start, we have a long way to go. And to get there, we have to think, work, and move like a team of teams, which is a great book, by the way, if you're looking for new reading. And our PMs have to act like the owners of these teams, and they have to make informed bets, and they have to scale quickly and validate along the way. So this, among other things, is how we stay highly aligned, loosely coupled, and focused on 10xing over and over again. And for the more business types in the audience, this is what you might look at as T-shaped companies, because all of this is a unique challenge of growing a business where you have to manage the existing operations and iterate and scale while innovating for the future. And they both fundamentally need very different talents and very different cultures, but they're equally essential at building a successful long-term product and a successful long-term business. So I hope you've learned something from the sneak peek behind the 140 characters. It's my most popular tweet ever, so I'm kind of proud of it. And into the minds of product at Shopify. And I thank you very much for your time. Cheers. And we're hiring, because I have to. Questions, yes, if any. Beautiful.
What's your current valuation of Shopify?
The question is what our current valuation is. You can check it out on your iPhone. I think it's somewhere in the range of 3.5 to 4 billion US, depending on the day.
Hi, is Shopify looking to expand in South America or Europe or some other continents? Is that part of your vision as a product leader?
We have customers in, I believe, over 130 countries, including in those places. And we recently expanded some of our more deeper point of sale products into the UK. So we're certainly do business and are open for business everywhere. Off team-wise, most of our staff, 90% is here in Canada. We have a small team in San Francisco, and we also have a customer support team in Ireland that helps on the overnights, given the global audience. But otherwise, that's kind of the nature of where we're we're at in terms of geographic expansion. The product is English only and does the best in the markets where English is the primary language of business. So the US, Canada, UK, Australia, India, so on and so forth.
Hi there. So you said a little bit about Jet Cooper. Could you go into a little more detail about that story and how the sale happened?
For sure. So Jet Cooper was a design agency, about 25 employees based here in Toronto, and we primarily worked on product design with other software companies and that were building web or mobile products. And so at the time, Shopify had approached Jet Cooper about doing some potential work together, and yada, yada, yada. But instead of proceeding with the work, Shopify thought there was a great opportunity to leverage the full talent of the full team and to use that to also expand outside of Ottawa in terms of a product development center. And that resulted in the acquisition about 10 weeks later in August of 2013. And we've been growing the Toronto office since. And I think maybe a point I'll add from your question is for companies to build and scale successfully in Canada, we have to use all of Canada. You think about the population size we have here is equivalent or smaller to the population size in California. So a company can build, scale, and stay longer in a single city in that region because they can access the top talent pool from 35 or 40 million people. For us to do that inside of Canada across a wider geography, we need to have multiple offices in multiple cities to really effectively keep the same quality of talent involved in the business. And so the acquisition, back to your question, was a way to begin seeding a second major talent pool center, and today we have 4 in Canada, and largely why I imagine Vidyard is looking at doing the same, even at 150 people. You absolutely need to.
Hi, thanks for this talk. A lot about designing business strategy is about dealing with threats. What are you losing sleep over now?
What am I losing sleep over? Great question. So when I talked about Shopify's vision, I said that we exist to spread internet entrepreneurship, or to really enable and democratize commerce for everyone. The reality is that where and how people start businesses is both different across the world, and it's also changing dramatically. People used to plan a lot, invest a lot, pick a single platform and start building a business, and today they can post something on Instagram and ask someone if they'd like to buy their cupcakes, for lack of a better example. So that's amazing, in fact, for people, but it also makes the process of how they go from there to growing and investing in their business less clear and less structured, which makes our job harder as we grow to keep capturing these customers at the scale that we do, which is why we've invested in integrating with all of these platforms where we believe people would like to start their businesses. So, but certainly, we want to be as flexible as people's ideas and creativity are for how they start a business, and we want that to be as expansive worldwide as it can be because cultures are different.
Okay. Hi, Satish. Over here, on the right.
Hey.
Hi. I just had a quick question. I think it's great that Shopify has a huge ecosystem of apps that support Shopify. Mm-hmm. What are some more tools that you wish third parties would develop for Shopify that would create a lot of value for the entrepreneurs? Mm-hmm.
There are 2 suggestions I would give in terms of people looking to build on Shopify, and I'm very proud that even inside of Toronto, a lot of the retail technology companies have chosen to build on the platform. I was at a DMZ retail tech event the other week, and 8 of 10 demos were Shopify apps already. But there are 2 main things I'd advise. One, the hardest thing for a merchant always and forever will be marketing. So anytime someone can simplify and ease marketing, that's going to be a very successful and valuable app inside of our ecosystem, and it happens to be the largest category that we have. The second thing that I would offer is people that are building mobile applications that interact with Shopify. We are increasingly moving our merchant tools into native mobile. We just launched a complete re-platform and redesign of our iOS and Android apps earlier this week, and we'd really like to see more of our developer community follow by building useful applications that are mobile first for merchants to manage and run their businesses on. So, 2 suggestions. Thank you. Hey.
Hey, so timing is key, especially for startups. You want to build a product really fast. You want to get validation. How do you balance that need for speed and at the same time do risky experiments? Similar to your mention of the early experiments of sales channels, how would you suggest smaller startups do that similar kind of experimentation?
Great question. I think at the earliest stages of a startup, your life exists as a series of experiments in order to find that same evidence of customer value. So your obsession needs to be with the problem domain, not the specific solution. So you can try a range of different things that might effectively deliver on that solution. And as you find something that works, because of limited resources, you're kind of forced at different periods of time to pick whether you're kind of deepening an area or a decision or expanding back out. And it's kind of a natural ebb and flow of the startup process, I feel, to kind of start with a series of experiments, focus in and concentrate on something that looks like it's working better than the others, learn a ton from it, see how far it can or can't scale, and then use it to kind of come back out and experiment again. So, and I'm not sure if that sounds super clear, but you are faced with constraints, and your best choice often with a developer or two is to not divide everyone's attention completely, but look at yourself as a different stage of exploration or validation and treat it like a cycle. So some startups I've spoken to even take, say, a month of their development time, and they will look at kind of the typical validation cycle and say we'll spend 2 weeks building, 1 week validating, iterating, 1 week polishing what worked, and then we'll do that again if you need to get to like in terms of like a very practical example of a division at a time.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries.
Hey, Satish.
Hey.
How often do you find the company has to refactor or tweak or change its org structure as you grow? And what numbers of people were the greatest inflection points for you?
So I joined Shopify at about 275 people, and we've probably change org structure every 3 to 6 months since, in the sense that an org structure is largely there to document what is happening inside of the organization, but when the organization is growing and evolving so fast, you kind of have to ask yourself, how often is it worth stepping back to try to redocument what's happening? What's more beneficial is ensuring there's culturally a awareness that that's the case, and that people are very fluid and open to how they work and organize themselves in teams. So there's much less of a reliance on titles or structure to guide decision making and project process. And that's the ideal. There's realities, as you grow the business and as more and more people come on board, and I can get into onboarding challenges with anyone that's interested, but that's certainly the ideal case, and we definitely have to keep adjusting the org structure to support that. Hope that helps. Thanks for the question.